The Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for February 16, 2016 will now come to order. We will have invocation, prayer, and pledge.
Will you bow with me? Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight, thankful to be a part of the city of Longview. We ask that your blessings be over our meeting, be over each and every one of us as we make these decisions together. Lord, bless our city, bless our country. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. Our first order of business is the approval of the January 19, 2016 Planning and Zoning minutes. Do we have any corrections or additions? If there be none, do we have a motion for approval?
Motion for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes stand approved. There is no consent agenda for tonight. On our regular agenda, the purpose of this meeting is to hear all pertinent testimony of those in support of and in opposition to the applications before the board. Tonight is the first of two public hearings required to approve a change in zoning. The board also considers plats. The procedure for public hearing items to be followed tonight will be: the public hearing will be opened and testimony will be heard in the following order: the applicant, the staff, the general public, those in support and in opposition to the request. If you're part of a large group with a common interest, we ask that you appoint a spokesperson rather than having each individual restate the same information. When addressing the board, please begin by stating your name and address. Try to limit your comments to 5 minutes. When all sides have spoken, the public hearing on the matter will be closed and no further public discussion will be entertained. After each public hearing is closed, the board will then vote on the request. Zoning requests and the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation will go forward to the second public hearing, which will be conducted by the City Council on March 10th, 2016. The first item on our regular agenda for tonight, RP 16-01. Public hearing will be held to consider application RP 16-01, East Haven Park, filed by Greg Jones to replat 8 lots into 15 residential lots located on the north side of East Marshall Avenue and east of North Eastman Road. Who represents the application? If you are here, please come forward.
Hi, I'm Greg Jones, 111 Hunters Creek Drive. The what has happened before this? We had 5 duplexes, 6 lots on the west portion of the plat that you see there. We're asking that an additional 11 lots be created. There's 2 roads, one named Norfolk Way on the north end and Suffolk Way on the south. It would be consist of 6 duplexes, additional duplexes, at just under 2,400 square feet per duplex, and 2 single-family homes at the northeast of the property.
Any questions for the applicant? There being none at this time, staff?
Thank you, Chairman Murphy. The applicant is requesting to replat 8 residential lots into 15 residential lots located on the north side of Marshall Avenue, east of Northeastman Road. Fire protection, sewer, and water have already been extended. The replat complies with all City of Longview requirements. Staff recommends approval of this plat. I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any question for staff? No questions, you may be seated.
Thank you.
No questions for staff. The public hearing on application RP 16-01 is now open. Anyone present wishing to speak in support of it, please come forward. Anybody present wishing to speak in opposition to it, please come forward. There being none, the public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion?
Make a motion, we approve RP 16-01.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we approve RP 16-01. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? RP 1601 stands approved. The next item on our regular agenda, public hearing will be held to consider application RP 16-03, Bob's Place, Unit 1 and 2, filed by Premier Management to replat 3 lots into 4 commercial lots located east of Airline Road and south of Hawkins Parkway. Who represents this application? Please come forward. Applicant not here. Staff?
Thank you, Chairman Murphy. The applicant is requesting to replat 3 commercial lots, as seen here, into 4 commercial lots located on the south side of Hawkins Parkway, east of Airline Road. Water, sewer, and fire have been extended. The replat complies with all of City of Longview requirements, and staff recommends approval of this request. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff at this time? There being none, public hearing is now open for application RP 16-03. Anyone present wishing to speak in support, please come forward. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Public hearing on RP 16-03 is closed. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve application RP 16-03. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 16-03 stands approved. The next item on our regular agenda, public hearing will be held to consider application PD 16-02 filed by ETH Properties, LLC, requesting a rezone from single-family SF3 to planned development, single-family detached for Lot 8, Block 3, Marberly Place, Number 2, located on the northwest intersection of Young Street and 12th Street. Who represents the application? Please come forward, state your name and address.
Good evening. I'm Richard Manley, 3201 Crenshaw Street here in Longview. Lady, gentlemen, I am excited to bring to you tonight a project that will bring new, high-quality, affordable home ownership to Longview. When I worked on the City Council for several years, I became aware of the need for affordable housing in our town, and I worked hard to increase not only the inventory, but also to improve the quality of said housing. Our comprehensive plan, approved by our fellow citizens, calls for the very type of project we're bringing to you tonight. And I want to quote to you a couple of them, a couple of passages from the comprehensive plan. Page 194 from the comprehensive plan. Accommodate trends in housing products. Housing needs and expectations are changing based on national and local trends that include shifting demographics, decreased household sizes, and aging population. This relates directly to smaller household sizes, the increase in single-person households and households without children, in addition to the amplified demand for housing variety related to an aging baby boomer population. From page 200 of the comprehensive plan, the goal: foster a strong and diverse economy which provides full range of employment and economic choices. The objective: promote a range of living opportunities for Longview residents in order to attract and retain a stable and diversified population. The strategy: meet with residential developers to discuss zoning, land use, and permitting processes, and determine options as possible incentives to encourage a range of residential choices. This project answers the need for quality, affordable home ownership in our town and is directly in line with a comprehensive plan. The likely homeowners, a retired couple, a single mom or dad. Our builder, East Texas Homes, has a 10-year track record of building quality homes, building good quality homes and communities here in our town. There'll be some other speakers following me, and I encourage you to consider our project. Thank you very much.
You are speaking on behalf of the applicant, correct, Mr. Manley? Okay. Staff?
Thank you, Chairman Murphy. The applicant is requesting a rezone from single-family 3 to plan development, single-family detached. The applicant is requesting to subdivide Lot 8, Block 3, Mauberley Place, number 2, into 4 lots that are approximately 50 feet wide and 75 feet deep, with approximate square footage of 3,750 square feet in size for each lot. All houses will be single-family detached with a minimum house size of 483 square feet. The setbacks will be 25 feet in the front, 10 in the rear, 7 on the side, and 20 feet on the corner side. All homes will be required to have a minimum of 2 parking spaces and a maximum height of 2.5 stories. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any commissioners have questions for staff or the applicant at this time?
Will there be sidewalks on this as far as in the?
They have not planned any sidewalks, no, sir.
What are the standard requirements for SF3?
The standard requirements for SF3 is 10,000 square foot lots with a 1,250 square foot home with a standard setback of 35 feet in the front, 10 on the rear, and 6 on the sides. And that is a typical SF3. That's what's required in SF3 zoning.
Okay. And this request is 483 square feet?
That
Or
is-
is that?
That is the request from the applicant, yes, sir.
Okay.
483
That's what
square
we
feet.
have right now? Okay.
Yes, sir. Minimum. They could exceed that, but that is their minimum.
Do these have garage, carport?
They do not have garage carport, but they do, if you can see up on the screen, they do have enough for 2 parking spaces, as shown there
Okay.
on the site plan.
Angela, do you know, are these 1 or 2 bedrooms?
I believe they're 2 bedrooms, but Mike could probably answer that a little better, but I believe they're 2 bedrooms.
Do we have somebody from the applicant who can answer that? Okay.
My name is Mike Alston. I'm with East Texas Homes. The concept as we laid it out there was to concept it. Well, actually, there's a revision that we are considering right now to make all of these homes ADA compliant, which would bump the square footage up to 550 square feet. They're 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. Obviously, you could put a 1-bedroom configuration there. Our thought is to put this up and let's just see what the market bears. We've done a lot of research to see what the need is here in Longview. And we've looked at other communities. There are many across the country who have done this successfully. And we'll see how it fares over there. But there'll be homes in quality very similar to everything we're building right now. They'll just be smaller. There'll be nothing cheap about them. They'll just be smaller. And we feel like the price point of this will come in under $50,000. That will make them affordable. We've got, and you'll see some lenders lined up who said they'd like to participate with us, which will make them affordable for a whole range of people. So,
These are 2 bedrooms?
2-bedroom.
What size are the bedrooms?
Bedrooms meet the standard size. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't have that layout with me right now, but
They'll have to meet the International Building Code, which requires, I believe, at least 7 foot wide and I think 10 foot deep. But they will meet the building code for standard house room size.
So they could be 7 by 10?
Yes, sir.
So what SF does this fall under?
This doesn't. This is why they're requesting a plan development.
Laughable, but the question of parking, I'm good with that. But looking at the traffic flow on our cross street, 12th and Young, just so I know, you can't street park on either side of that? I mean, could they park on, if the two spaces are taken, where's your alternate parking gonna be? Not this bad, you just don't want,
I mean, any type of permanent parking, they would have to provide
I'm
that
not talking
permanent
about
parking.
permanent parking,
But
I come by to visit and,
oh, you could park on 12th Street
okay.
temporarily.
Yeah, the city
Yeah.
does allow on-street
Street parking.
parking
That was the word
temporarily.
I was looking for.
It's just
Yeah.
if it were done, on a more permanent habitual basis overnight, that's when it'd be
Yeah.
in violation of city ordinance.
And we're working the frontage off of 12th,
So
correct?
what are the size of the structures around there now?
I believe,
Are they in an SF4 or SF3 designation?
can you go back to the zoning map?
Oh, sorry.
If you look at the zoning map, the light blue, which is SF3, now some of them might not comply with the SF3 requirements of 1,250 square feet, but I'm pretty sure most of them do. Now, south of Young is SF4. SF4 requires a minimum house size of 1,000 square feet.
Any additional questions?
Going back to the sidewalk situation, what has to be done to be able to get the sidewalk into it, since it's, because Young's pretty busy, 12th Street's pretty busy. What has to be done to be able to put sidewalks in?
I'm going to go back to the aerial real
Well,
quick.
on the comprehensive plan, wasn't there, weren't they talking about trying to incorporate sidewalks in new developed areas?
That is correct. Through the comprehensive plan process, sidewalks was a big part of the comprehensive plan. And that is something that we could require with this plan development, is that sidewalks be included.
And something else to think about as far as sidewalks go, we haven't codified that requirement yet in the zoning ordinance because we need to look and see where it's most appropriate to require sidewalks. Would it be a good idea to put a sidewalk in an area that doesn't connect with other areas that are more walkable, in commercial areas or residential areas? Obviously, large residential developments would benefit from having it, throughout where you got 30 or 40 lots. In a situation like this, would it make more sense to have it on 12th Street? Well, what would it connect to? Or would it, if we had a long-term plan that outlined where we needed sidewalks, then it would allow us to better determine, what developments were appropriate. So that's why staff hasn't recommended it in this situation where we might recommend it in other ones, just because to recommend it just to recommend it, I don't know that that makes sense. If we had it tying into something else, might be more appropriate.
So the lot widths are 75?
The lot widths are 50.
50?
Yes.
My question is to staff here. This is a significant decrease under our minimums. Who else is doing this around the country?
This is a concept, as we met with the developers, many of you may have seen the tiny house concept, and this is kind of a play on that. I'm not going to say it is a tiny house concept because a lot of the tiny houses are mobile, but they're taking that idea and across the nation, the tiny house concept is used for a variety of reasons. It's used for transitional housing. It's used for an affordable housing concept. And so what they're looking at is taking it as a model for affordable housing, because the cost of construction, we don't really have a whole lot of control over that. What we do have control over is square footage. So if you can't control the cost, but you can control the square footage, that's really the only way to look at making housing affordable. And so what they're trying to do is, as Mr. Manley stated, the comprehensive plan says to look at those trends, look at housing, family sizes, And so what they're attempting to do with this is to test the market on a piece of property that's sat vacant for a while, that's in an area that they can purchase at kind of free and clear. I know that's been an issue in certain portions of Longview where the lots have title issues, especially the ones that we can get that are more affordable. And so, when they talked to us, we felt like taking a concept that is so very different, and I'll agree with you on that. How do we best implement it? And I think we do it in a manner where it's not just spot, where you just do it like one house on one lot. I don't think that does anybody any good. And when we look at doing planned developments that are a little different, it makes more sense to try them on maybe an edge of a neighborhood where it's not, smack in the middle, and where you can do, 3 or 4 of them and kind of test the market and kind of have something that can comp off of each other. And so that's kind of what we recommended the approach. And, we've talked with others about doing a very similar concept, and that's kind of how we've guided them because, traditional Longview zoning and land use is not flexible for a smaller, more affordable house. And many times when we come before this group, with rezoning requests where they want to do a smaller lot, like an SF5 type lot, that's been a hurdle because the SF5 housing size, which everybody's afraid of the small house as it relates to, property values, maintaining that. But at the same time, how do we combat affordable housing? And the only way that we really know how to in this market is to try to look at a smaller square foot. Let's give people just what they need, not not all the amenities of size. Gives it in a smaller package as far as the lot size. It's less to take care of. And so this is an opportunity to test it. And I agree with you. It is very different. It's something that the Longview that our community has asked for, but we've also got to be willing to kind of try it too.
So how do we determine where we do tests?
Public hearings is one way of doing that.
So how many public hearings have we had about having a test on this radical a change?
This is the first one. This is, the first site-specific, opportunity that we've had presented to us. As far as, going in and carving out a very specific zoning category, we've not done that yet. I imagine that's something that we'll do as we amend our zoning. That's something we've talked about for a number of years, and we're going to be going through that process over the next year or so, doing a unified development plan with our zoning.
Well, what does staff think the potential economic impact on the neighborhood and so forth with something like this could be on the upside as well as on the downside?
I can tell you what I think. I'm not a professional as it comes to that.
So we don't really have anything to go on?
I think from what the developers have told us, they're looking at instead of comping it on a total price, they're looking at comping it on a price per square foot. And not to take words out of them, and I'll let them explain it a little bit more, but the way they presented it to us was that they would be comparable in amenities just on a smaller scale. So if you look at a price per square foot sales price, it would be comparable to what you would have just in a smaller package. So I'm not an appraiser. I don't know if they would take that into account, but that's how it was presented to us.
Okay.
So does this fall under the permits and stuff like that the city waives and all those issues?
It could. This is in the SLIP area, and if it and their intention is to build this for owner occupancy, okay. And under that SLIP program, they would, if it is owner occupancy,
how
they
does this
qualify.
compete with Habitat?
I wouldn't say it competes. I would think it's another option. I would imagine that if this is something that our community embraces, I know that we've talked to others that would like to see Habitat do something similar to this. I don't know that they will. That's something that their board would have to decide. But this would be another option for affordable housing. I think it is going to be critical on where it goes. I don't think it would be appropriate, just to put it on every vacant lot that we have available. I think you do have to look at, protecting the surrounding areas, and we're very sensitive to that. And that's why, in my opinion, you look at doing that, either redeveloping a whole area into something like that, or you look at doing it on the edge. And this is, this is at an intersection, it's at the edge of this area. There's a lot of hurdles. I mean, I don't know that there's ever going to be a perfect spot, but I think, if we're looking at affordable housing, you have to certainly take that into consideration.
Okay. Any other questions at this time for staff or for that?
I guess that's the only question I got. I think the concept, we all agree. 12th Street, Young Street, new development, be nice. I wish I had found a better place to put it, because you got some houses around it. If I was the guy across the street on 12th Street, what's he gonna think? And I don't mean that at all. I think it's a great concept. I think it works. It's a great lot. I don't blame you for wanting to do it, but my only concern is, like he's saying, what are we gonna degrade? Anything is better than what we got. But I also know if that was my grandmother across the street, what's she gonna think? And I'm not saying no or yes. I'm just asking for that thought process. The tiny concept's gonna work. I think Longview needs that idea. That's my own personal opinion. I just am concerned that we keep it, and I know your quality of work, but that's my only, that we're sticking it right there, a bunch of NSF3s. Man, I wish we had a place we could take this that it wasn't. Conceptually, it's fantastic, but that's my only reservation of thought process of that we're fixing to make an inch and it's there. You put the postage stamp on it, you can't unglue it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we will now open the public hearing for PD 16-02. Anyone present wishing to speak in support of this application, come forward.
Good evening. I'm Dan Droege. I live at 3831 Harley Ridge Road here in Longview. I'm also market president for First Bank and Trust East Texas. The property we're discussing is one that most banks look for to complement their loan portfolios. Banks are examined and graded by federal regulatory agencies for their CRA compliance. CRA stands for Community Reinvestment Act. Congress passed the act in 1977 to reduce discriminating credit practices against low-income neighborhoods, a practice known as redlining. The act encourages banks to help meet the credit needs of the local communities in which they are chartered, consistent with safe and sound policies. These federal regulatory agencies take this information into consideration when approving applications for new bank branches or for mergers or acquisitions. Therefore, banks are always looking for opportunities to make loans in these areas or to be involved in these areas to get CRA credit. With an experienced builder like we have, experienced entrepreneur and investors that we have, the new homes being built in this area that was addressed in our city's comprehensive plan, my bank is very interested, as well as others, I believe, in doing this project. Thank you.
Good evening, Karen Holt, 501 Pine Tree Road. I am the housing navigator for the East Texas Aging and Disability Resource Center. Gregg County is one of the counties that I serve, as well as 13 others. And tonight I'm here really to speak to the social services side of this project, and also to share with you as an advocate for affordable and accessible housing. Through the Aging and Disability Resource Center, we answer numerous calls on a weekly basis for elderly, disabled, as well as veterans that are on a low fixed income in our community that need this concept greatly. We have a huge shortage of affordable housing. I can tell you stats all day long. In our area, we have over 3,000 units that we are short on, and that is in our community for affordable and accessible housing. We're looking at individuals that have less than a $20,000 annual income. Here in Gregg County and Longview, 34% of those individuals rent. That's not taking into account those that own. 90% of those renters that fit within that low income pay more than 30% towards their rent or their mortgage. That is a huge burden. Our studies show that it's up to 67%. So on this particular concept, if you're looking at $40,000 home, you're looking at, with taxes and insurance, you're looking at about a $415 mortgage that would fit within their 30% of their income on standards. And unfortunately, we will never be able to provide enough affordable housing to make up that 3,000 unit deficit. But this is just a small mark that we can make in our community. And to talk to Mr. Rice and his comment about where we would put it. We're never going to know until we try. I don't think segregating this area, this particular home is the answer. I think that there needs to be integration. These individuals that we're talking about that would purchase this home are going to be, again, elderly, on a fixed income. They're going to be your individuals that are on SSDI that have some sort of disability, and they're going to need a small, accessible home. We're also talking about veterans, homeless veterans. I do serve on the Northeast Texas Homeless Consortium, and I will tell you that last year we have 303 homeless individuals in Longview. This year we did a count 3 weeks ago, and that number is even higher. So I just urge you to consider this. And again, I'd be more than happy to talk statistics with you all day long, but I'm hoping that you guys will be progressive enough and to take that leap of faith in this project. I have seen some of the homes that Mr. Austin has done with East Texas Builders. And while they are a little bit larger, we're talking about a home that is going to be brand new, 100% accessible for those individuals, and affordable. So anyway, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Carpenter. For those who don't know me, I live here. I reside at 301 East Twilight over on the west side of Longview. And I come before you tonight to speak to this project from several sides. I've been involved with the project since the concept was achieved. I will assure you there are no materials planned to be used that are substandard to anything that's required currently by the code, nor with the code change that will occur on September the 1st. Most of you know that I'm a former chair of the Building Standards Commission, and I've been in every one of those neighborhoods out around this project site. I really think the need is there. I was looking through some council notes, and this was brought to the council's attention in January of 2015. Okay, folks, we're almost 14 months later, but nobody's come to the party with the money wanting to get this going. These fine folks have taken the risk and are willing to come forward. So we've sat around, for whatever reason, listening to groups that would like to do this, but nobody wants to put their money where their mouth is. So now comes forth this group. This project has the full support of McCoy's Corporation. It's been visited on the regional staff as well as the home office staff in San Marcos. The folks at San Marcos at our headquarters are actively involved in another project that some of you may or may not be aware of called Fishes and Loaves. It's a 27-acre project in Austin, Texas that's dealing with the next grade below this, which is the homeless. So we understand and we look at it. I overheard a question comment, and I would share this with you, that piece of dirt right now is costing the city probably a couple of thousand a year for it to sit there versus a $200,000 tax base finished product. So that stands to reason to me that if for no other reason than the tax base which is where the city budgets and those parts come from, that projects of this sort should go forward. We hear rainy day dipping in, we don't know what we're gonna do when the next budget cycle comes. Well, folks, I'm telling you, we can build our way out of it. But you're gonna have to be able to take projects like this that are meeting needs. Some of you know that I co-pastor over at Gregton United Methodist Church. And Gregton is in a shared ministry team with Wesley United Methodist Church, which is on Moberly Avenue. As the crow flies, it's about a mile from that site. And this weekend in meetings with those people, they said, is 4 all we can get? Is 4 all we can get? So East Texas Homes, I'll speak to them for a minute. They're good people. They've been clients of mine for a long time. Very good customer. They pay their bills. They do what they say they're going to do. So we've looked at it, and we believe that it's the right thing to do. We believe that looking at it, and Carrington shared the numbers. When I first saw the numbers last October, I was appalled that we had let our community, folks, where we live and make a living, get 2,000 to 3,000 units behind on affordable housing. Now, what does that say about a community? That means we need to catch up. And we'll never catch up. As long as any of us in this room live, we'll never catch up. But we've got to start somewhere. If it's 4 units, so be it. So I'm speaking before you and from 3 or 4 different areas. I've got employees at the store that would love to have one of these houses because they can afford it. Single women, one kid, they can afford it. So I really urge you to not be so concerned over location as trying to do the right thing for those who are less fortunate than everyone in this room. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Sidney Allen here in Longview, Texas. And I guess I have one question and one comment. The first question would be, now we're talking about 500 square foot. Is there really that much of a financial difference in between 600 or 700 square foot compared to 500 square foot? Would it be a situation where you could not get 4 on this lot? I mean, the lady that spoke financially, I guess my question is, why is 500 square foot the magic number? I mean, is it, would another 106, it makes a considerable difference when you add, when you're in this small size and you go to 600 square foot, you're adding 20% more footage. If you go to 700 square foot, you're adding, what was that, nearly a half, say 40% more square footage. So that would be my first question, which I'm sure Mr. Manley would be able to answer. Now, going back to my past experience on planning and zoning, you've got 4 homes that are going to front on 12th Street. My concern is the home now that's behind those that fronts on Young Street. I would, and this is, I would definitely recommend, and it wouldn't be that expensive for the developer, that you put a fence along that back side, and I'm not sure whether they're talking about north, south, east, or west. Does 12th Street run north and south the way it's laid on this?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess that would be on the west side, the back side, because we definitely have a home back there in the residence of that home that now front on 12th Street that would have at least 2 residences that they would be looking in the backyard or the back door of those other residences they're talking about fronting on 12th Street. That would be 2, maybe 3 residences that they would be looking in the backyard, back door, whatever. So my recommendation would on the plan development would be a fence running north-south parallel with 12th Street on the back side. So I guess that would be a recommendation, and the only question would be, could they possibly be larger? Thank you.
So in reverse order, we already have plans to fence the perimeter of this property. We intend to make it feel like a community, so when the people drive into their carports, there's lighting. If the street light's not appropriate, we plan to put lighting in if it's necessary. If the street light's bright enough, then we'll leave it as it is. But again, we intend to make it feel like a community, and we felt like the fence was important to do that. With regard to the first question, it really is as simple as this, Sydney. The difference is $10,000. It's a $60,000 house versus a $50,000 house. Or 100 square feet. So it's really all about cost. You can make an argument. We can stand here, I'm sure, and debate, you know, why not 40,000, why not 60,000? I think those of us who have means might not think that's a big deal, but the people that we're talking about, $10,000 might make the difference whether or not they can qualify for the loan or not, as hard as Mr. Droge's bank and others want to try to make it happen. So that's, we chose this, as Mr. Alston said, it's where we wanted to start. Can it evolve to something different? Of course it can. But we've done our research. We think 500 square feet is the sweet spot, and we're going to build a good quality home with built-in appliances, granite countertops, ceiling fans. This is a home I would live in if I couldn't afford anything more than this. Good quality homes. It's not going to be falling down in 10 years. It's going to be a nice home, and I wish we had some pictures we could show you of the kind of homes that East Texas Homes has built before. But if you've ever been down 3rd Street, 12th Street, some of the older neighborhoods that are maybe kind of coming back, if you will, some of the brightly colored homes, that's East Texas Homes. Good quality homes with people in them right now that are homeowners, and they wouldn't have been otherwise. And we feel like this is a niche at a lower price level that will get folks into those homes. Does that answer your question, Mr. Allen? Anyone else have any questions I can answer?
Are they brick or siding?
Siding.
What
Pier
kind
and beam, solid wood construction.
kind of siding?
Mike, what kind of siding? Vinyl siding.
Now, the builder hasn't built 500 square foot homes like this before.
Correct.
So this will be the first time for them to build this size house.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, lady.
Anyone else wish to speak in support? Anyone wish to speak in opposition? There being none, the public hearing is now closed. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion
Or
for
discussion.
approval.
I second.
It's been moved and second to approve application PD 16-02. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. Okay. Next item. Next item on our regular agenda is a public hearing will be held to consider application PD 16-03 filed by Dennis Wade Associates, Inc., requesting a rezone from PD 42 office to PD 16-03 office single family for lots 1, 2, 3, block 191-A. Branchwood Office Park located on the east side of Judson Road, north of Yates Drive. Who represents the application? Please come forward.
Thank you. I'm Bryce Davis, architect with Thacker Davis Architects, 1100 Judson Road, and I speak here on behalf of Dennis Wade and Associates, but I also own property on a building and a lot in Branchwood Office Park, so I have a vested interest as well. The south end of Branchwood has been undeveloped, or underdeveloped, I guess I should say, since the inception of the development. Lots 1, 2, and 3 have been approached by Dennis Wade and Associates for purchase and for replatting. This would create lot 1, if you will. The development that we're talking about is really a footprint development of a common residence and office building oriented and facing Judson Road, residence behind that, and oriented facing Yates Drive. Total facility size is 4,670 square feet, which just roughly is about a little over 1,100 of that is office. The balance of that is residence and garage. The replatting of this will basically save the inherent beauty of this particular portion of property. which does affect the adjacent eastern neighborhood, but it also affects all of those that drive down Judson Road. The footprint of the building on Lot 2 is basically, was developed, quite frankly, in 2007 as a footprint and a pad development for a potential office building that was never built. So it is cleared. We're looking at a minimum removal of trees, which is the owner's preference, and certainly my office's preference, in order to facilitate the construction. The deeding of common property in Branchwood Office Park has been discussed and will be required in this in order to facilitate that personal residential access and development that is needed on the east side of the residential development. And I will say this, that the aspects of this development have been reviewed, voted on and approved by property owners of Branchwood Office Complex. So the covenants have been modified to reflect realistically the presentation here this evening. It is a singular, I guess, option to put a common residence and office building here that will have to stay that way until it's revisited at any point in the future through an effort such as this. So that was important to the property owners of Branchwood, and I think also important for the city as well and the area. I don't know, I'd be happy to answer questions, but that's a thumbnail of the development, and I'd answer any questions that you may have.
Have you looked at the existing concrete that's out there right now?
Yes, and that's a really good point. If you've driven this, you know that there is significant need there. That's going to fall to the development itself, but also to Branchwood, which, since there's been no development in that area since the late 70s, there is deterioration in a couple of significant places that will have to be replaced that would be common property replacement relative to Branchwood.
How were they going to plan on readying their foundation? How are they going to pour concrete? They're going to pump it?
Oh, that's down the road. We haven't, you know.
Well, what I'm getting at is I've driven over there 3 times, and looking at that road bed, if they put a 10-yard concrete truck on there, it's gone.
Well, it may be that the last thing done is replacement of paving as need be, and they utilize that paving to facilitate access for concrete trucks. It also may be that the simplest and most effective from a cost point of view to a contractor would be to pump it from Yates Drive, which would be a singular effort, pump all the concrete. They could actually do the site development concrete and the slab at the same time. So I think that's going to be up to the contractor input, but the reality is I could see it working both ways. But you're absolutely right. The existing condition of on-site pavement, Branchwood pavement, is such that there'll have to be corrective work, not just by the potential owners here that we're talking about and the development here, but also by Branchwood Office Park as well.
So they're proposing to make an access onto Yates Drive?
Yes.
Well, that's going to leave a right-of-way through the whole office park onto Yates Drive. That seems kind of detrimental since the residents in that area have already gated one end of that place to keep the traffic down there.
Yeah, let me just address that twofold. One is the access to Yates Drive is a really critical element as far as the residence development is concerned. If you've driven that, no matter what the pavement condition is like, it is a somewhat laborious access to go from Branchwood Center, if you will, to Branchwood South. And so that would be something that would be inappropriate perhaps for someone driving to their garage. So that, from that point of view, it really supports the residents. It also potentially could have significant impact on emergency access for emergency vehicles. So that has a plus side as well. But as far as the frequency of access, the history of Branchwood is there's never been any development over there. I've officed there since '86. I've never seen any significant parking beyond Linhart Properties building, Caldwell Banker building. And so there's never been any access over there. So that much is true. The truth of the matter is the office development here is going to be an accountant's office, and so their frequency of traffic is extremely limited. The neighborhood has 3 accesses off of Judson currently, and certainly we're sensitive to trying to minimize any kind of traffic flow through this, which I don't think would be significant by any definition, but we're certainly sensitive and had conversation on ways to positively address that.
Well, I do agree that that needs to be the only access to the garage area, because that'd be a great way to get in and out, especially for the wage. But is there some way to stop that concrete that's going there now and block it off to where there's no access from the office park out that way?
I can't say yes or no, and the reason for that is because there's multiple input in this matter. I think there is ways for the city to consider either a way to break that totally and coordinate emergency access otherwise, which has been loosely discussed with the city, and they have concerns about that, and I don't want to put words into staff's mouth here, but the other is possibly putting an on-site gate with a Knox box key situation that would allow access by emergency vehicles, but not allow routine access, as long as we could coordinate and facilitate vehicles that would come to that area of Branchwood being able to easily turn around and leave. And so that's the challenge in working with the staff. So we don't control that. We have been in discussion on that.
Does it meet fire code now?
No.
Okay, so it's got to be redone anyway, right? The turning radius and everything on the approach has to be redone? The new drive?
The new drive?
Would have to be a turning radius and everything to meet
a
ladder truck.
You can't meet a ladder truck. The physicality of Yates to on-site drive, you can't meet an interior radius for that.
Okay.
And so you have a situation where you can maximize access, create even a wider berth that will create greater access. Now, one point I would make is that fighting a residential fire, so to speak, is rarely, if ever, an on-site matter, that it's fought from the street. So my point is, as far as if there was a separation of drives, so to speak, that Yates would be available to supplement any access that would be provided onto the actual residential side property. We'd have to work out a facilitation of access to the west side of the property to fight fires, which, again, is not something I can resolve. I can work with the city and attempt to resolve, yes.
Well, right now, the entrance in front of the wooded area there, I don't think a fire truck can get in there.
No, it could not.
And I think with it being a ride-in, that's part of the issue, is its ability to get in, but also this long stretch, being able to get in this area and back up and not have a way to get out. Generally, you have to have a turnaround available if you have a dead-end drive that's over 150 feet. So that's something that we have to take into consideration, with this existing drive.
The only way they could put a deadhead in there would be to go up higher up on the lot, right? Would be to pull the driveway up north, I guess. We're looking at that.
Yes.
To be able to put a deadhead in there for a truck to get in and out.
Sure.
They'll never make a radius.
Yeah,
So-
and even if the truck came in here at this other drive and came down, you've got such a long drive, they don't have the turnaround on this end. And I don't know that this is wide enough or dimensioned to be considered a turnaround.
No. I've
So
driven in there 3 times. No, it's
yeah.
not.
So, as he stated, there's multiple issues with that and potentially a couple of ways to address it.
Yeah, and if I could just agree with Michael here, the turn-in that you see off Judson in this image, obviously it's not going to work for an access point, but the question is, could it work as an egress point for firefighters? Could it be made to work in that way, which was going to be in any way, shape, or form a compromise, but it could be reworked to only allow, instead of a 183-foot backup, to have a 45-foot backup and then exit the emergency vehicle via this turn-in. But again, that's only been discussed in concept. It hasn't been, studied. There hasn't been any decision made between my office, the owners, and the city. It's been concept discussions at this point.
Well, I think putting a residence area into their office is a great idea. That's a good tax base right there. It's a dead area. It's been kind of blighted, looking for a long, long time. I don't like the egress onto Yates out of the office park because I don't really see that it's necessary. A fire truck's going to stay on Yates more than likely. He's definitely not going to come up in the front of there and try to squeeze in that little alleyway there to work on that structure. He'll either come in on an access off of Yates, which the deadhead would probably have to be up higher towards the driveway itself, which would give them access in and out to the back of the structure, versus trying to come in off of Judson Road. They'd have to go down to the next turn to get up in there, and not even sure they could even make the radius to go up into that long, narrow area there. So I think we're being detrimental to the fire department. At that point, we'd have to let the fire marshal look at it and make sure. I really don't think that roadway is necessary there for that part.
One of the reasons for fire lanes is not just the large fire trucks, it's also for the ambulances as well. Because I would agree, I don't know that they're going to try to put, our big fire trucks in there. They may try to put one of the smaller ones.
Every time they send out an ambulance, they send out a fire truck.
Correct.
So that truck's got to be there.
Well, and they do pre-planning, so they know where they can and can't go. But when we start looking at fire access, we do, we factor in the ambulance service as well.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to get them in there where they're having to, get up, try to get somebody out of there and having to back up long distances.
If I could just add one thing, and your points are well-founded. We've officed in Branchwood since '86, and routinely, and I don't know if this is annually or biannually or every 6 months, I don't know the answer to that, but firefighters will access with a fixed axle truck, not a small truck, a large truck. They'll come in on the northernmost entrance off of Judson into Branchwood. They come physically to check condition and provision of fire extinguishers, and they leave Branchwood by the middle drive due south of Caldwell Bankers. So they are making that access. And so driving that direction in is kind of a proven thing. It's routinely done. It's just the dead-end aspect from that middle drive down to the front of the development at Lot 2 is what we're talking about, how to resolve that, if that's possible, in working with the city.
Mr. Chairman, I know we often ask about driveway locations in regard to zoning changes, but shouldn't our charge here today just be the zoning change and not the developmental part of it?
This is a planned development, so we do, at this point, because of the zoning, we do look at driveway locations, as well as the site plan and the layout of the building, setbacks, height, all that kind of things, within a planned development. Yes, sir.
Good.
Any additional questions for that? If not, we'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Chairman Murphy. The applicant is requesting to rezone from PD 42, which is for an office park, to PD 1603, which will allow for office residential. It'll allow for the construction of the office in the front, which Mr. Davis had previously stated as about approximately 1,000 square feet. with the attached residential, which is approximately 2,836 square feet with a 746 square foot garage. The front setback is approximately 20 feet from the property line, and that's the front facing Fredonia, with a right side setback of 0, a left side setback of approximately 100 feet, and that is from the most northern part of the property, and with a rear setback of approximately 10 feet, and that is from the property line. In the rear, there's approximately 50 feet of HOA area behind this property line. The site plan shows 7 parking spaces within the HO area that will be provided for this development. Through the development process, the project will be required to meet all other City of Longview requirements. If the residential space were to ever be converted into office space, the owner would be required to submit an amendment to the plan development to ensure compliance with parking. Fredonia and Judson. Fredonia is a collector, Judson is a principal arterial, which is appropriate for this type of development, as long as access management is followed. As Mr. Pirtle stated, they have proposed an additional driveway onto Yates Drive, and also this will be a 1-story building. Staff finds that the proposed zoning change is consistent with the future land use map and surrounding uses. I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
What sort of fencing has been discussed regarding this property?
No fencing has been discussed yet. Now, I know in the previous plan development, there was a requirement that a 6-foot wooden privacy fence be required where possible and necessary along the eastern, northern, and southern property line. And it has come to my attention by some of the property owners that I think the southern property, I think that one of the fences has been taken down, and so it'll probably be required, or it will be required to be replaced as part of the previous plan development.
Any other questions for staff at this time? There being none, public hearing for PD 16-03 is now open. Anyone wishing to speak in support of this application, please come forward.
My name is Richard Wade. I work for the owner of Dennis Wade Associates, Margaret Dennis Wade, and it's our proposal that Mr. Davis has pretty well explained all of it to you. We have significantly addressed the curb cut on Yates, Steve, and the neighbors, you're going to hear some conversation about their concerns about traffic in and out, which we have the same concerns about traffic flowing around our building and in onto Yates that way. We have come up with several different alternatives. I've discussed some with some of the members of the board. Gate areas that would a gated area that would separate the office area from the housing area, but that would allow access with a fire and emergency. We have discussed, a landscape area that would prevent anybody from turning around there, but probably still be accessible by a truck. If the curb cut on Yates happens, the emergency and fire vehicles would have some access, and we agree that a lot of times you'd be fighting the fire from Yates. If you drive through that neighborhood, probably 95% of the houses in there, you would fight a fire from the front yard anyway. There are some that have turns that go down that you need to get into. They're gated and that kind of thing. But the drive is important to us because it's going to be our driveway. The curb cut on Yates is important to us. We completely understand and agree with the neighbors not wanting a bunch of traffic to come and go that way. We think there are multiple ways that it can be addressed, and it's simply a matter of, very honestly, we're at a point where Dennis Wade and the neighbors have come to an agreement that probably the thing we'd like the best is an island. Now we have to come to some decision about whether or not that will comply with the fire code. And that's kind of where we are on that. And so, other than that, I could probably answer questions on this better than I can sit here and make a speech.
I think it's a great idea. I'm just scared about, the fire safety on it.
But tell me what...
Because an existing structure in that neighborhood, it is what it is. We can't go back and change that. But the new things that we're doing, we can make sure that we have the safety for the firefighters, the safety for the residents that live there, that the equipment they have that can get in and out. Plus, I do have some concerns about the traffic getting in and out of there because, quite frankly, the residents have voiced concern about that. And, you know, having your driveway up a little bit farther seems like, to me, it would be more of a private.
Further to the east, which way? Further?
I guess north if I'm looking at that, or east. Yeah, east, okay.
I guess at some point, we get close to what the property line is, don't we, Bryce? I mean, I'm not sure how far. I mean, we don't have a problem with that. We would not have a problem. I'm speaking out of my, making sure I'm speaking what I'm supposed to be speaking for. We would not have a problem with see, I've been married 45 years. We would not have a problem with the driveway being further east. That's not a problem for us at all, and that kind of thing, because it's our intention that the east end of the house will be the garage entrance. The west side of the building that faces Judson will be the office. South side's the front door that faces Ms. Northcutt. And one of the things we like about this, besides people who are cruel to animals, my wife hates people that clear cut worse than anything. And this is the thing that we like. We think, and these lots, they've sat there for a significant period of time and not be developed. Lots 1 and 3 are pretty burdened by the creek, as you've noticed if you've probably gone there. They're going to make a wonderful backyard, is what we think. Yeah. And the trees are going to stay there to the greatest extent that we can have. There are trees falling over now onto Lot 2. Part of what we're going to do immediately is go in there, find out what trees are still good, find out what trees have got problems that we need to come out with so they're not falling in our backyard, that kind of thing. So as far as moving the driveway to the east on Yates, that's not a bit of a problem. It initially started out where it is, because in the initial conversation, it was interested in being directly across the street from Ms. Northcutt's, and that was kind of the reasoning about where it is. Now, it's not going to be as wide as Ms. Northcutt's is and that kind of thing, but I don't know. Is moving it further to the east, is that a problem from a traffic flow?
Yes, and I think if you move it to the east, I believe that's going to get it closer into the neighborhood. I think if you move it to the west, it's going to get it closer to Judson. We do have, in our driveway standards, we do try to line those driveways up so you don't have offsets. Even though we're intending to have, minimal amount of traffic, you still want to have consistency with your opposing drives. So I think, in order for it to not line up, you would have to probably move it significantly to the west to get that offset. And I don't even know if there's room. I don't have that distance memorized, but I don't know that you'd have enough room to get the offsets.
How are they still going to get a fire truck down there? They can't put a deadhead in right there, can they? So how are they still going to get a fire truck there? They can't make the radius. They can't put a deadhead there.
Sure, so, and I'm not going to speak on behalf of what the fire department's going to do with the fire truck, because I don't know that they can get one in and out of there with those tight radiuses. And of course, we'll have to look at those radiuses. A lot of it's going to be looking at the smaller units and also the ambulances, because they will absolutely get an ambulance in there.
Yeah.
The issue seems to me to be, the neighbors seem to be, everybody we've spoken to, there's not a single person we've spoken to that hasn't said we're in support of development of the development itself. The issue is the curb cut on Yates and the traffic it might generate going into the neighborhood. Now, the only thing you can do when you go into that neighborhood is, this, but you can only go back to Judson. You cannot exit that neighborhood on the east now at Hillcrest. So you would always go back to Judson. We're not sure how many people would want to go into the neighborhood to get back to Judson from being on Judson, because if they leave either our office or Ms. Linhart's office or Mr. Davis's office, there's 3 different ways for them to, actually it's 2 exits is what it is to get to Judson right now. So
I don't think it's the excess off of of Yates. I think it's being able to get through the office park from Yates to the office park. That's the problem.
Okay. So
it's not the approach to me. That's great, especially if you're going to live there. That would be the way to do it. It looks more like a residence. I think that would be more appealing, especially to the Northcutts across the street. to have that look more like a home than it would be an office.
She stops me in church every Sunday morning and wants to know when we're going to start. Ms. Northcutt does.
But my issue is being able to get off of Yates and come through there and get into that office park.
Yeah.
I have a problem with that right there.
And I think,
if there was a 10-foot section out of that and you couldn't drive over it, hey, that'd be great.
and I think the neighbors and the Wades have come to an agreement on how to do that. The situation is, can we get all that to comply with what the fire code's going to do and everything? I've said that I'm going to say this publicly. From the moment we began to work on this back in August last summer, Ms. Choi and Mr. Shirley have been absolutely nothing but 100% cooperative. We'd say to them, we want to do this. They would say, well, that's fine. Now, they didn't just say, go do it. They said, here's what you need to do. But I've been on boards just like this, as you know, and you hear about this, negative development. That's the diametric opposite of what we found out.
There's no negativity to this.
Well, but my point is that staff has been 100% supportive of what we're trying to do and helped us, said, here's how you do it. And I just want to make that a public statement.
Angela?
Yes, sir.
As we come before you tonight for this, I heard just then the homeowners and he have tentatively discussed and approved. Everybody gets happy. But the next step is they might be having that discussion, but it doesn't affect yes or no what we do. And the driveway in and out egress on Yates, once again, is our vote yes or nay to a driveway or to the rezone. Am I making sense? I feel like we got two issues going, but only one we're truly voting on. Could you clarify that? If we say yes, is it whatever you want to do? Or can we bring in those elements that both sides have already agreed to, evidently and verbally? Can we throw that into this ordinance that we are now discussing?
You could approve it with a stipulation. However, we want to ensure that what they agreed upon does meet the fire code.
Okay, so we could throw fire code approval, neighborhood approval, homeowner approval, business, and put that into an approval tonight.
Yes, you could do that. I'm just not sure, we've talked to our fire code official, and I think that what they've discussed as far as curbing up some of that section and providing landscaping where there is no access, I don't know from our fire code specialist if that actually meets fire code. He has said that that does not meet fire code. What staff has suggested, and I know that I don't think that the neighborhood the neighborhood is opposed to this, but suggesting that a gate be installed where that where that driveway onto Yates would be, installing a gate that is closed at all times and that can be accessed only from the Wades, and with a fire-approved access, such as a Knox lock.
We still have to proceed through the public hearing.
That is correct.
That's been open.
Yes, sir.
Now, we can discuss some of these, but if you will, let's proceed on through the public hearing and get it closed. Okay? Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in support? Is there anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to this PD? If so, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Casey Goolsby, and I live at 1205 Yates Drive. And I've been duly appointed by 73 of the property owners in this subdivision. And I want to start by saying, you asked if there's somebody that speaks in opposition. And Mr. Wade's correct that the property owners, the way this is drawn up, looks like a great thing. With the exception of the curb cut onto Yates Drive. The problem with that is that there are multiple homeowners like myself that have young children that walk in the neighborhood, and we used to have a severe traffic problem. People cutting off over from 80 to get to Judson Road, and they would fly through there at all hours of the day at various speeds, and it got dangerous. And so various homeowners went to the city and actually got the property deeded over to, it's an unincorporated association that owns Summit Drive, and it's a little strip coming off of 2nd Street over to Hillcrest Drive, and we put a fence in. And that's had a huge effect. Actually, it's a gate with an arm coming down, and that's had a huge effect on the traffic coming through there. And what we don't want to have happen is open it back up again, because I don't know if you could access one of those pictures that shows the traffic coming up north and south. If you see, there's really no good way to turn off of Judson Drive into the Branchwood office complex without getting in a turn lane. And if you're in the morning or in the lunch hour, it's a lot of traffic coming through there. So the concern is that in order to get around that, what do? You get off of Yates, onto Yates Drive and come back around. And so that way you don't have to wait on a left-hand turn right at that busy intersection. The ideas that have been discussed are the island that Mr. Wade talked about. The owners are all in favor of that. If there could be a physical barrier between I guess it would be the eastbound part of that driveway separating the private residential access, that's great. We want to be good neighbors. I mean, we're not here to fight what they're doing by any stretch. But what we don't want to have happen is with a gate, if you put that gate in, let's say it doesn't get maintained. Things like that happen. The issue with the fence that, Ms. Murray, I think you had asked about that, there is supposed to be a fence there. There's not one there now. And so the only way that you can enforce that is by bringing some sort of private action against an individual. In this case, it would be basically our neighbors to try to, say, okay, fix your gate and put this fence up. Nobody wants to be in that position. And so that's why we're trying to say, and I don't know from the city's standpoint exactly what the issue is as far as the radius of a fire truck and the turnaround, what all that entails. But the way it stands right now, the way I understand this, is that you're being asked to approve this as it's proposed to you tonight. And, if you do that, then the homeowners, we have no way to go in and redo this and agree to different things once it's done. I mean, we'd have to be able to come to some sort of agreement with the Wades, and I'm sure we could, but let's say that the city won't allow us to do that. Then we're stuck with access off of Yates Drive exactly how it looks right now. And we just don't want to be in that position of increasing the traffic in this neighborhood when it doesn't have to be. So, what sort of issues is it from the city standpoint? Is it the turnaround for the truck, or what?
Yes, it's because you've got a long distance without an appropriate turnaround. So without that turnaround, you need to be able to go straight. So that's what that means of access would be for.
Okay.
So, there's some options, trying to fit a size appropriate turnaround in that design, or, trying to provide the appropriate separation there that would be a controlled access, or, and I don't know what they've discussed, whether it be, some sort of permanent break, but, we could do something where they do a gate that only has a Knox padlock, where the only people that could access it would be the fire department. That would be recommended from the city standpoint. That way we would still have access to it. They wouldn't. There could be some language on the PD where the city would be the ones to enforce it, as opposed to, the private action that was mentioned. If it's part of the PD, then we enforce it. And, kind of going back to the fence issue, that language is somewhat subjective because it does say where necessary and possible. And generally, we look at providing fencing when you have a higher impact next to, residential use, and without there being, development there, it really, in our opinion, with the woods and the trees there, it wasn't necessary to enforce that with the subjective language.
Okay, all right. Perhaps, Mr. Goolsby, if you will provide to us what your preference in representing this group would be
Yes,
in
sir.
this situation.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
We can talk about crafting something.
And I think that our position is just like Mr. Wade's in that we would, and I don't want to speak, put words in your mouth or anything, but I think they, as the property owners, would much rather approve the physical buffer of the natural landscape where you have a, row of trees, bushes, what have you, that separate the private entrance from the remainder of the public access.
Mr. Goolsby, would you please walk up to the picture
I'd be more than happy
and show me
to.
where you're talking about putting an island?
And I believe what we had discussed was somewhere like right in here. Just a little bit further. A little further west? Okay. Even further west.
Down.
Closer to
Yes, sir. Not far at all from the front, not far at all from where the office building is, so.
Well, I think what we can agree on is that as long as it happens anywhere within that rectangular area, it's just whatever it is, as far as a physical permanent barrier there, I think that's what everybody can agree on. Am I right about that?
Yes, it does. We had thought more along toward the east, toward the west end, that would make it look like a separation, that would be also separating the office area, the office parking area, the 7 parking from what would be the front of our house.
Do we have an understanding of the concept of what they're recommending? Staff?
Yes.
Okay, good.
What was that? I'm sorry, what did Mr. Murphy ask?
I just wanted to make sure the staff understood the concept of what
Yes.
the neighborhood is recommending, so that we can try to craft something once we get out of the public hearing. So we can't do it till we do. Okay.
So is it wood fence or wrought iron fence or what?
Once we get out of the public hearing, we can.
Well, I don't wonder what they had in mind.
Oh, he wants to know what kind of material you wanted on the fence.
Well, don't want a fence. And I think what we were talking about doing was basically, if you want to put that back up, that picture, is basically take up that concrete and plant some trees. Something to that effect.
A buffer in those.
If I,
Now, let's come back to the microphone because they can't hear you. We need y'all to come back to the microphone. Sorry. We do have a pointer.
Yeah. The hatched area right down here is our proposed, that it's where our handicap parking space is going to be, somewhere right along in there. And what we're proposing is something slightly to the east of that. Either our preference is what Mr. Goolsby in the neighborhood is an island or some sort of separation thing there. We would be glad to do the gated area that's just right there. I lost the mouse.
Oh, I don't think yours is.
Okay.
working.
We wouldn't mind putting a gate. Oh, that's you doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. We wouldn't mind putting a gate in relatively the same place we're talking about putting the island. But the neighborhood would prefer the island as we would prefer the island. So either one of those things is acceptable to us. What we want the curb cut, and we want to do whatever it takes to make the neighborhood be comfortable with the flow of traffic.
Okay, Mr. Goolsby, so we want an island, is what you want.
Yes, sir.
Now, if we start working into this and it requires a gate for fire purposes or whatever, will that still accomplish? I know that's not your preference.
Yes,
but I'm
sir.
just-
In a perfect world, obviously, we would like the island, but if the gate were there to where it couldn't be operated by anyone other than the fire department, I don't want to make sure, y'all want to?
I would make one recommendation. There are products that are available that are drivable surfaces that have a green look. I know Cowboy Stadium or AT&T Stadium has used it in some of their parking areas where there's Grasscrete's one of them. There's other permeable products that have a base that will support a fire truck, but then they plant grass on it. And it's not something that you want to use where you've got traffic every day. Obviously, it wouldn't stand up, but it will support an occasional usage. So there might be an opportunity to where they could excavate and put a certain amount of that type of surface and
That
actually
would be an island, as far as I'm concerned.
Sure, and I'll give an example. They're on Judson Road, north of here, the new apartments that are going in there adjacent to Magnolia. They're doing something very similar to that, where they have a driveway off of Judson, but TxDOT did not want to allow them to have all the traffic from the apartments going in and out. So if you notice, there's a section, a couple of feet that's taken out. They're going to do something very similar.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that is an option.
Okay.
I'll make it easy for
Thank
you. We want an island.
Got you.
That's
Got
it.
you. Got you.
All
Okay.
righty.
All right.
Do you have any other questions for me?
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition?
My name is Mike Smith. I live at 1104 Yates, one of the nearby neighbors. And again, I've talked to many of our neighbors, and we are in support of the building and the layout and the residence as it shows. We have an extreme concern over the Yates Drive access. And if you're crafting something, we ask that we're looking for a permanent barrier and not a fence. Any other questions?
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? There being no one else at this time, the public hearing is now closed. It would appear to me that we're dealing with a planned development, which means that we can designate and stipulate some things associated with it. And as I understand it, we could stipulate some type of an island if the applicant wished to do that. I mean, if they come forward with it. Is that correct?
Absolutely. P&Z
Okay.
has the ability to add
Okay.
conditions.
Okay. So, what's the commission's pleasure?
My question I have for you is, can this be tabled to where the property owner and the residential area can come up with an agreement on what needs to be done so that they can bring back a option
wanna
that
table
is
it.
approved?
I wouldn't table it.
We can carry it
I would
over.
just postpone. P&Z can do several things. They can not take action on it tonight and ask them to go back and take all the considerations and bring back a new proposal. P&Z could also make a recommendation with additional stipulations. Then it would go to council as a recommendation. It would still go to council as submitted with those recommendations from P&Z. P&Z could make a recommendation for approval, denial, approval with conditions.
Well, the reason I'm saying is how big is the island going to be, those type of things that
Sure.
are open-ended. And taken care of, because obviously they're all working together, they just got to get it pulled together.
Sure.
And that situation.
What I might recommend is, if we postpone discussion till next month, that pushes it another month. I don't know what their timeline is, if that's going to, put a significant burden. I don't know what their drop dead timelines are. Then we could get a clearer picture. We could make a recommendation. I would caution you against making a recommendation for an island because that would be contrary to the fire code. What I would recommend is if we're trying to prohibit and give the appearance of that not being a full drive-through for, vehicular traffic and trying to just control it for the residential purpose, that we look at doing a gate and either just doing the gate and leaving the asphalt there, or doing a gate and doing one of the permeable surfaces that's not curbed, that would just, pavement would end, it would be grass, and it would have the appearance, if for some reason the gate ever went away, I doubt the general public would take a chance on driving across that grass. But then through fire department pre-planning, they would know that that would be a surface that they could drive on because it meets the engineering criteria for that kind of surface.
To the applicant, would you be amenable to us postponing this to next month, giving you an opportunity? Because we can't sit here and try to, we're not going to be able to determine if it's going to meet code and so forth. So
My confusion is, Michael, did you just say a gate and a separation? I mean, you're saying you're saying that at this point staff is recommending that there has to be a gate?
We're not based on their questions, I'm giving them some options that they can do. I think, obviously staff has recommended it as submitted based on, not taking into consideration the discussion we've had tonight, and we've gone into great detail about how we make our recommendation for proposals. But given trying to meet your intent and meet the intent there, that would be what we would propose as a solution, would be to, because we want to maintain that fire department access. That's, I'm not the fire code expert, but I think that from a city standpoint, we would want to maintain that access and get more access. And if we're going to allow the driveway, we definitely want to have access to it, or look at some other alternative. And I don't know that we could discuss that tonight because it would be something significantly different.
currently, as this PD has been submitted to us for consideration, do we have a gate? Do we have an island? What do we have?
As it's
Or
submitted, it's
nothing?
just a
We have no
full-blown-
island, no gate.
full-blown access. Yes,
We
sir.
just got an open access. Okay, so the application as it stands for either approval or rejection is with just an access,
Correct.
a driveway.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if we're going to consider this application, we have to consider it as it is unless we stipulate and add something to it. If we stipulate and add to it, it still has to go through the fire department to find out if it's going to receive or meet the codes, correct?
Correct.
I mean, if we say we're going to, okay. Are we all clear? I mean, do we all
It would have to
understand
come
what
back
you?
from the fire department with city code being approved.
Yes, P and Z I don't think has the ability to grant a
We can't.
variance to the
Right.
fire code.
That's my understanding. I would make the recommendation for approval with conditions, with the verbiage of the next word. And if one of y'all can help me with that word, I will make, if you did that, you still got with conditions.
Well, with the PD, we can add stipulations to it.
Okay.
I don't want them to sit down and talk about it.
I agree. I think that would be the best way to do it, but if the applicant doesn't want to do that, then we're basically
I think P and Z, I would,
have to vote.
P and Z has the authority to do as they wish. I don't know that, I mean, you can certainly take them, what they're asking into consideration, but ultimately, I don't know that we want to get into a situation where we're, brokering a deal contractually.
Right.
Doing contract zoning.
Well, if there's not going to be any discussion, there's no point in postponing. I mean, the whole point, I think the intent was a postponement for a discussion to take place to work this thing out.
And they come
If
back.
there's not going to be a discussion, there's no point in the postponement. Or am I wrong? And that's what I was asking the applicant, of would they be willing to do that?
Daniel can tell you, we've been discussing this since August of last
Mhm.
year.
Can you come up? Yeah.
I'm sorry, excuse me. We've been discussing it since August of last year. The traffic flow that the neighborhood had a concern about, we didn't find out till about 10 days ago. And we have discussed it at great length every day with multiple different things, as Angela can tell you, to try to work it out. And it seems to me we've worked it out between the neighborhood group and Dennis Wade, it's just a matter of making sure that what we've worked out complies with fire code. If it doesn't, then the answer is I don't know.
What you've worked out is not in your application that's being presented to us.
That's correct, because we presented the application like the
Right.
26th of January and didn't find out about this part of it until after that. So as far as resubmitting an application, that kind of thing, you know, we would be glad to do that. But again, that's one more month in that kind of process. And I guess I would want to be sure next time we get here that we have somebody who can say that yes or no, it will be on the fire code. Let me simply say this about that access and about the fire code. Some of the neighbors have been told that the island would be acceptable to the fire department. Okay, so now there's been a change in the organization structure of how development works, and the individual who told the neighbors that the fire department would allow the island to be there is no longer involved in the development part of the process. So that's another situation we've had to deal with. So it seems to me that Dennis Wade and the neighborhood have agreed that we like the island. The idea of what Michael's talked about I always wanted to have something like Jerry Jones had anyway. So if something like that would certainly be acceptable to us. And Mr. Davis seems to be familiar with it. It's evidently structurally to where you can drive a fire truck over it and that kind of thing. That sounds acceptable to us. That would give the fire code access. So we would probably prefer that you all make a decision and let us work it out with the neighbors. I mean,
we can add a stipulation onto this to add the island, okay? Pending it being acceptable
with the fire code.
With the fire code. If it is not acceptable with the fire code, then your application is going to fail.
Okay.
Tim Carpenter again.
Mr. Carpenter, the public hearing is closed. Unless I call you up, what are you adding with me?
You've got another piece of this puzzle. The plans are incomplete, correct? They've still got to make it through permit. Fire protection is part of the permitting process.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So, Commission, we can add.
Have you heard, Mr. Chairman, very briefly? You know, the way it stands right now, this either passes or fails on its face. You know, if we need time to go ahead and work this out, you've got a petition here with 73 homeowners asking for that time. So, you know, for us to sit here and debate an island or whatever, you know, I don't know that we're going to be able to do that tonight. So, if need be, you know, we'd ask that it be tabled until the specifics can get resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. We can add the stipulation of the island on this PD pending it pass fire code approval.
There was no egress on the Yates Drive.
Right. That's what I was talking about. From the standpoint that if we didn't have a egress on the Yates Drive and you had the island there, then you're going to have a gate across it. Okay, that's what you would have. Whereas if the city's requiring for that entrance to be there, then that's a situation. But what if you were just make that part of where the island's going to be going forward your driveway and not have an entrance into Yates? Because Judson.
Where are you going to come into Yates?
You wouldn't have an entrance on Yates. You would just be coming in and off of Judson.
I mean, pragmatically, from the resident's point of view, that would be extremely difficult. You could imagine having to drive through Branchwood to the residents, you know, as opposed to accessing the residents more directly to Yates. That's the desire of the client, and it is obviously an understandable desire. So.
Well, if there was no access off of Yates and the structure was to be built, how would the fire department look at that, Michael?
Without speaking on behalf of the fire code, official, I would imagine that they would have to provide some sort of turnaround at the most remote portion,
The deadhead.
whether it be a T, a Y.
Can I just address that as well? I mean, that fundamentally, I mean, realistically, that fundamentally is going to kill the project, because that's going to eat up so much of the existing property, plus it's going to get into the area that the Wades wish to save, as far as having to reach out and grab enough site in order to facilitate the movement of such a large vehicle that would be mandated in that sort of situation. So, I mean, that is really a site negative in any kind of considered development for a combo residence office.
Mr. Chairman, may I be heard?
Yes.
I'd like to make a recommendation for approval with conditions. Those conditions be to add an island pending approval with the fire code.
That's completely acceptable to us.
Everyone
I need to
hear the
repeat
motion? Only the commissioners need to. Everyone hear the motion? Do we have a second?
Adding the island, correct?
Is recommendation for approval with conditions to add island pending approval with the fire code.
A second.
It's been moved and second that application PD 16-03 be approved with the addition of an island as it has been described here, pending approval of the fire code. Are you prepared to vote? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Sure. Aye.
It's 4-2.
All the ayes, please raise your hand. The nays. Okay. Let the record also reflect that Commissioner Lance Scully had withdrawn from all discussion and voting on this matter due to a conflict. Okay? So, application PD 16-02 with the amended language regarding the island is approved 4-2. Okay? All right. Staff update.
Thank you, Chairman Murphy. All items at council were approved by council, including the amendments to allow for food trucks.
Food trucks coming, huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Driving on it.
Do we have any other citizen comment at this time? There being no other citizen comment, this meeting stands adjourned.